It all started on a Tuesday, an unremarkable afternoon when the autumn air was crisp with the promise of a cold night. William was closing up his workshop when he saw them. A woman, huddled on a bench across the town square, with 3 small children pressed against her like frightened sparrows. They were thin, their clothes worn, their faces smudged with dirt and exhaustion. But it was the woman's eyes that stopped William in his tracks. They held a mix of fierce protectiveness and utter desperation, a look he'd only seen once before in a wild animal caught in a trap. He hesitated. Life was already hard enough. His savings were a joke, and the pile of unpaid bills on his kitchen counter was a monument to his daily struggle. Every instinct told him to just turn away. But then, the smallest of the 3 children, a little girl with tangled blonde hair, looked up, and her gaze met his. There wasn't a plea in her eyes, just a deep, weary emptiness that no child should ever have to know. In that moment, William's own loneliness echoed in that little girl's empty stare. He couldn't walk away. He crossed the square. "Excuse me," he said. The woman, whose name he'd soon learn was Elizabeth, flinched. Her arms tightened around her children. "We don't want any trouble," she whispered, her voice raspy. "We'll be gone soon." "I'm not here to cause trouble," William said gently. "My name is William. I have a warm house, just a few blocks from here, and a pot of stew on the stove that's big enough for all of us." Elizabeth just stared at him, her eyes clouded with suspicion. The world had taught her that kindness from a stranger always came with a price. But then, her youngest son's stomach let out a loud, pitiful rumble. That sound broke her. Tears welled in her eyes, tears of shame and gratitude. She could only nod. That night, as William lay in his own bed, listening to the unfamiliar sound of quiet breathing from down the hall, he felt a shift in his life. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel so empty. He told himself it was just for one night. He had no way of knowing he had just opened his door to a raging fire, and that its flames were already starting to lick at the foundations of his quiet world. One night turned into 2, and then a week. William, seeing the exhaustion in Elizabeth and her children, insisted they stay. The town of Maple Creek, true to its nature, began to weave a quiet web of support around them. Mrs. Gable from next door showed up with outgrown children's clothes. Mr. Henderson at the grocery store told Elizabeth to put whatever she needed on William's tab. Slowly, Elizabeth began to let her guard down. The hunted look in her eyes started to soften. She insisted on earning her keep, cleaning the house with a feverish energy and cooking simple meals. William would come home to find his chaotic home transformed. Laughter, a sound that had been a stranger in these walls, started to make a comeback. William and Elizabeth fell into a quiet rhythm. They'd talk in hushed tones late at night, sharing stories. William spoke of his wife and his struggle to be both a mother and a father to Leo. Elizabeth, in turn, spoke of a life before this one. As a promising graphic designer, she started to sketch again, her hands moving with a forgotten confidence. She never spoke of the children's father. Whenever William gently nudged the conversation that way, a wall would come down. All he knew was his name Richard, and that its mere mention plunged her back into the shadows. A bond began to form. Leo blossomed with his new siblings. William found himself actually looking forward to coming home to the warmth, the noise, the life that now filled his house. He was falling for Elizabeth, for her quiet strength and her beautiful, wounded soul. He was beginning to imagine a future, one he hadn't dared to dream of. The illusion of peace shattered on a cold, rainy evening. William came home to a dark, silent house. He found Elizabeth in the kitchen, trembling. Her phone lay on the table, its screen glowing. She looked up at him, and the terror in her eyes stole his breath. "He found us," she whispered. "Richard, he knows we're here." The story she had kept locked away came pouring out. Richard Reynolds wasn't just a bad husband. He was a wealthy, powerful man who saw his family as possessions. The abuse started with words, then turned physical. She showed William the faint, silvery scars on her arms. She had planned her escape for months, finally fleeing in the middle of the night. Maple Creek was supposed to be different. It had felt safe. "He said he's coming for the children," she sobbed. "He doesn't want them. He just doesn't want me to have them. He wants to punish me for leaving." The threats confirmed it. Texts arrived at all hours. A sleek black car was seen lingering at the end of their street. William went to the town sheriff, who warned his hands were tied until Richard made a move. The weight of it all began to crush them. One night, Elizabeth stood at the door, her bags packed. "We have to leave, William," she said, her voice flat. "We're putting you and Leo in danger." William looked at her, at this woman he had grown to love, and at the terrified children hiding behind her. In that moment, he made a choice. He was a man, protecting his family. "No," he said, his voice firm. He stepped in front of the door. "You're not running anymore. This is your home now. Our home, and I will not let him take it from us. We're going to fight." He was woken not by a sound, but by a smell, the acrid, choking smell of smoke. William sat bolt upright, his heart instantly hammering his ribs. A hellish orange glow flickered from under his bedroom door. The house was on fire. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through the fog of sleep. His first thought, Leo. His second, Elizabeth and her children. He threw open his door to a wall of heat and a roaring inferno consuming the hallway. His workshop, full of flammable stains and wood, had been the starting point. This was deliberate. "Leo!" he screamed, his voice raw. He found his son coughing in his bed, disoriented. He grabbed him, threw a blanket over his head, and shoved him toward the window. "Climb out! Go to Mrs. Gable's and call for help. Now!" He didn't wait to see if Leo obeyed. He turned back toward the heart of the fire, toward the room where Elizabeth and her kids were sleeping. The smoke was a thick, black monster, stealing the air from his lungs. The heat was unbearable, searing his skin. He could hear the children screaming, a sound of pure terror that fueled his adrenaline. He kicked down their bedroom door. The room was already filling with smoke, flames licking at the curtains. Elizabeth was frantically trying to get the window open, her hands fumbling in panic, while the 3 children huddled behind her, crying. "The window won't budge," she cried, her voice strained. "Get down on the floor," William yelled, his own lungs burning. He grabbed a chair and, with a surge of desperate strength, smashed it against the window pane. Glass shattered. He quickly cleared the jagged edges with his bare hands, not even feeling the cuts. "Get them out. Now!" Elizabeth pushed the 2 older children through the opening. William followed, helping them to the ground. He turned back for Elizabeth, who was now lifting the youngest. But just as she passed the child to him, a section of the burning roof above them gave way with a deafening groan. It collapsed, sending a shower of burning timber and sparks down on them. William reacted without thinking. He shoved Elizabeth and the child clear, taking the brunt of the falling debris himself. A heavy, flaming beam struck him across the back and shoulder. The pain was immediate, white-hot, and blinding. The last thing he saw before the world dissolved into agony and the roar of the fire was Elizabeth's screaming face, lit up by the flames that were devouring his home. He woke up to the sterile white ceiling of a hospital room. The smell of smoke was gone, replaced by the sharp antiseptic scent of disinfectant. A dull, throbbing pain radiated from his entire right side. Elizabeth was there, sitting in a chair beside his bed. Her face was smudged with soot, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen, but she was safe. The children were safe. "You're awake," she whispered, her voice thick with relief and guilt. "The doctor said you have 2nd and 3rd-degree burns on your back and shoulder. You saved us, William. You saved all of us." She broke down, sobs shaking her small frame. "This is all my fault." "No," William managed to rasp, his throat raw. "This is his fault." The fire had taken everything, but it had forged something new. The community, horrified by the attack, rallied around them. The sheriff, now armed with a clear case of arson and attempted murder, issued a warrant for Richard Reynolds' arrest. The confrontation happened 2 days later. Richard, arrogant and unhinged, showed up at the community hall, expecting to find a broken Elizabeth. Instead, he found a woman transformed, flanked by the sheriff and his deputies. William, his arm in a sling, stood just behind her. "They are not your possessions," Elizabeth said. her voice as clear and cold as steel. "They are my children, and you will never touch them again. You tried to kill us, you burned down the home of a man who showed us more kindness in a few weeks than you showed me in 10 years. You have nothing without me," he roared, his mask of sophistication slipping. "You're wrong," she said, looking back at William. "I have everything." As the sheriff stepped forward to place him in handcuffs, Richard lunged toward William, his face contorted in hatred. He never reached him. The deputies tackled him, and as they dragged him away, still screaming, Elizabeth didn't flinch. She had faced her demon, and won. The months that followed were a testament to resilience. With the help of the community and the insurance money, William and Elizabeth began to rebuild. They didn't just rebuild the house, they built a new one, designed by Elizabeth, with a large workshop for William and a bright studio for her. They combined their talents, launching a custom furniture business, Maple Creek Designs, which became a local sensation. They rebuilt their lives from the ashes, stronger than before. 1 year to the day after the fire, on a perfect autumn afternoon, William took Elizabeth to the hill overlooking their new home. The 4 children played in the yard below, their laughter carrying on the breeze. The scars on his back were a permanent reminder, but they no longer pained him. They were a testament to the family he had fought for. He got down on one knee. He didn't have a fancy ring, just a small, simple band he had carved himself from a piece of maple wood salvaged from the fire. "Elizabeth," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "we started in the wreckage, but you and the kids, you rebuilt me. You brought life back into my home and into my heart. Will you marry me? Will you make our family whole?" Tears streamed down Elizabeth's face, but this time they were tears of pure joy. She said yes, and as he slipped the wooden ring onto her finger, they knew they were finally home. Their journey had been born from desperation and fear, but through the fire, they had found something indestructible. A family forged in courage and a love that had proven it could withstand any storm. What started as one simple act of kindness turned into a life-or-death struggle and, ultimately, a second chance at love. It just goes to show that the greatest risks can lead to the greatest rewards, and that true strength is found in protecting others. If this story of courage and resilience touched your heart, please give this video a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories that remind us of the incredible power of human compassion